Hello, TechEdge is going to be producing a series of short videos to try to highlight the main differences you will find in the TVOV service compared with what you had before, so historically in this TV-only service, and also to show some examples about how you can get the different reports run in Instar Analytics. In this first one, we're going to be focusing on a summary of the main new ingredients that you will find in system. So I'm not going to be running any examples yet. Those will go into the different other clips. But I would like to spend some time showing the new things you will find when you log into the software, so Instar Analytics. So shortly, what you can see on the screen is just my configuration. I have a home page that shows how many minutes and the percentages viewed on each one of the different devices. You can have your own, of course. And if you're interested in having something similar to this, just let us know. But we're going to be focusing, as I said, on what we can find when you open a new template. So I'm going to be showing you some of the differences in the dimensions. There's no major changes on the channels, or the targets, or the dates, or the time bands. But you're going to be finding some interesting stuff under activities. You will have, as usual, live and consolidated playback 7 days, and this I believe is the default one for Norway, so this is a gold standard. But now you will see in the new system that you actually have two different points of view to start analyzing the data. One is the traditional one, which is, or we can call it broadcast data time. So all the viewing that is made on different days is really attributed back to the original broadcast transmission. So if this a program transmitted on a Monday, I record it and I play it back on a Wednesday, the viewing is going back to the original Monday. This is what we can call the broadcast date and time. Under this folder, we will have the traditional activities like playback Vostal, playback 1 to 99 days, and the playback by the different combinations of days. This is very similar to what you have traditionally with the TV-only service, except that now we are extended the playback days from 28 to 99. But again, no major change. The thing that does change is the second point of view, which is now based on viewing date and time. So what this will give you is the ability of looking at viewing exactly when this is done. So if anyone, again, was recording a program transmitted on linear on a Monday and it's playing it back on a Wednesday, we are going to be showing when on Wednesday this was viewed. This is very important because it would also be aligned to everything you get with the second important bit of this new service, which is video on demand. Video on demand is always reported at the time in which this is watched, so it makes a lot of sense to try to analyze not only this video on demand activity which you can get from streaming, but also everything else you do based on TV when you record and playback. If you open this folder, which will come in the new version 4.8, so you probably won't have it in your existing version, you will have the new activities, PV Vostal view time. This is viewing done on the same day when it was recorded, but when it was actually viewed. So if there's a program being transmitted at 3 p.m. and I watch it on the same day at 5 p.m., I am going to be looking at the viewing at 5 p.m. PV199 is similar to what I said before. So if anything was recorded 1 day before, or 2 days before, or 5 days before, when I am playing this back, this is when I'm going to be showing that viewing. And finally, video on demand. This is all the activity that I have when I start looking at streaming services and I decide to play content. And that content, again, could be something that could have been transmitted linear 1 or 2 days before, 1 month before, or it could be content that was never transmitted on TV. It's just something that I play back when I access a streaming service. We've also created a consolidated SVOD, which is basically adding up the PV and the VOD, so you can have a whole figure of what is being viewed, which is non-linear at a particular day. We're going to be running a few examples in other videos, so you can start analyzing and understanding how these work. But if you're curious and want to try to understand a bit more about what they actually mean, remember you can always right-click, and under Properties, you will find a description of what it does. So in this particular one, PV view time includes all viewing that was recorded and watched back on the same day as the live broadcast at the time in which it was actually viewed. Okay? We're going to come back to activities because that's a very, very important subject, but this will happen when we run a few examples. The second dimension that changed and is linked with the previous one is platform. This is defined as default as all platforms, so we're going to be analyzing, if you don't choose anything, all the different platforms. But from here, if you want, you can start splitting the viewing, the audiences, between what was done on broadcast, so it's traditional TV, and what came from online, so from streaming. These are the two main groups that you have on the platform. If you go to the device, again, it's linked with the previous two, and it goes a little bit deeper into analyzing the data. So in this particular case, you can start looking at how much viewing is done on TV sets, which is linked with broadcast, but then the online is actually now split by the type of device that you're going to be using. So you can start looking at how much viewing was done on PCs and Macs, on tablets, smartphones, etc., etc. You can combine, obviously, any selection of device with platform of activities as long as they make sense. If you don't select anything on device, you can see that the default is all screens, so it would be like running everything that you select. And finally, in terms of the new dimensions, we have location. So again, by default, you're looking at the viewing coming from any location, but if needed, you can also start looking and splitting the data between viewing done in-home and out-of-home. Okay? These are the main differences you will find in these dimensions to start analyzing the data. But we're going to be moving into the second group, which is the filters. You keep the prompts filters and the spots filters that you had before, but you're going to be seeing a few more attributes here. Some of them come from metadata, production company, production type, production year, alternative genre. There are a number of different new ones. If you have any doubts, you need to check with Gallup. But I'm just going to be focusing on two that we're going to be using in some of the examples, and they're content ID and counter ID. These are codes that do not give you a lot of information as a user, but they're very, very important for the system to link linear viewing with non-linear viewing. So whenever you want to start analyzing a particular program that could have been transmitted on linear TV, but it can also be made available on a streaming service and is coming from metadata, this is the way in which we can merge them. They have, in production, they have been allocated a common code so the system can analyze and put them together, and this will allow you to start creating total viewing figures for any content. So you can start looking at your programs and start looking at how much viewing was done on live, on playback Vostal, on playback 1 to 99 days, but also on video on demand, and get a total figure for everything. The units, we have done some changes here, but we're going to be analyzing some of the new units that would make sense in this new context, so we'll leave it for the moment. And finally, on the reports, there are a number of different parameters that will allow you to analyze, again, linear and non-linear, and combine, as I mentioned before. So I'm going to be explaining the main differences here that you will find. If you look at a programs analysis, and you just click it as I did now, and you run the analysis, it would just create a standard report as you did in the past, based on television. But if you look at the parameters column here, you will see there's a new checkbox which says non-linear content. If you click on this one, the system will also analyze data coming from streaming services. So not only looking at the programs that were transmitted on TV, on linear TV, but also include everything that may have come from the different streaming services, of course, if you select the streaming services as part of the channels. Once this is active, there's also another checkbox, which I don't think you need to be using for the moment, but allows you to include those contents that have no viewing at all. This could be interesting in very specific occasions when you want to look at what the repository has, so all the different contents that we have in our databases, even if they were never viewed. But initially, I would suggest that you keep it unclicked because there could be several millions of statements. I'll just leave it like that. But also there's another thing which is very, very important, which is critical when you start analyzing the data, not in the traditional way, so based on the broadcast date, but based on the viewing date that I explained earlier. And this is the filter by time band. If I look at the viewing of a particular day and I want to analyze what was being viewed on that day, I could be asking the system to filter this and show me only the viewing done, for example, between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. If you don't click this, it will be running on the entire day. But if I do click on this, the system will take anything that you may have defined as time band. The default, again, is whole day, but from here you could create a new time band, and it's running from 7 to 10. And then what the system will do is saying only showing everything that was viewed between those times. Finally, the last bit here that again we will show in an example is the aggregation. So far, when you click on this checkbox, you're going to be analyzing in the same report all the different linear and non-linear contents, but they're going to be separated. So you will see the same program in one type of activity and the other one. When you go to the aggregation, you can start looking at two different options. One is to say, leave the linear alone, but everything that comes in on demand, all the viewing on demand, just put them together by the content, of course. But then the third one, which I think makes more sense, is combine linear with non-linear. So for each different program, you will have a complete figure, a full figure of all the audience that was allocated in linear and non-linear. Again, this is something that we will show in examples. The only thing we wanted to show now are the main differences. So remember, it's basically under activities, platforms, devices and locations. It's under the filters, but it's also when you look at reports. So we're going to be leaving this video here, and we're going to start looking into running a few examples and explaining how you should be selecting these different components and how you should be doing the interpretation of the new audiences.